founder of 721 News website says garbage collectors are also COVID-19 frontline workers. Minister of Finance gives a virtual presentation on the stimulus and relief plan for St. Martin. But first up, Prime Minister gives update on the COVID-19 statistics and other pertinent issues. Those are the headlines for Wednesday, April the 22nd, 2020. This is SXM Daily News. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Thank you for joining me. And now for the details. Prime Minister, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, on Wednesday's weekly Council of Ministers press briefing, gave the latest numbers as it pertained to the COVID-19 pandemic on St. Martin, as well as the additional ventilators that were received for the St. Martin Medical Center. The Prime Minister gave updates on the various issues that are currently affecting us here on the island.
Yesterday, Tuesday, April 21st, 2020, the St. Martin Medical Center received a shipment of 5 ventilators from the Dutch Ministry of Public Health, Welfare and Sport, VWS, in the Netherlands. The government is thankful. Government of St. Martin, as well as St. Martin Medical Center, is quite thankful for the grant of these ventilators. As you may know, we had already received 12. But unfortunately, 6 of the ones that had been sent were incompatible with our systems here on the island. Therefore, those were sent on or sent back via Curacao. If they can use them there, then they'll be utilized there. If not, they will be returned. So we were very happy to receive the 5 that came in yesterday. Also, during this week, as you may have read in our written press release yesterday, there are now 2 persons in the medical pavilion, mobile pavilion, which was constructed by government on behalf of the St. Martin Medical Center, outfitted and has a capacity of 14 beds for medium care. Medium is called level 3 or 4 at the St. Martin Medical Center, and we currently have now 2 patients who have left St. Martin Medical Center high level care, level 1, and moved over to 3, 4, where they are now, after that, possibly going to go home on their way to recovery. During the first part of this week, I also held strategic EOC meetings with, first of all, ESF 6 as the main carriers of this pandemic on the health level. Thereafter, it was followed by our strategic meeting with ESF's 5, that is a police department, 6, health, as I mentioned, 7, community welfare and social services, 9 is general affairs, governmental affairs, and 10, the Ministry of TIAP. Ministers of the relevant ministries were also invited to this meeting. Unfortunately, the Minister of VSA was called out to Parliament and could not attend. However, the Minister of Romy, as Deputy Prime Minister, was also there to receive updates and further deliberate on the COVID-19 developments. All this is being done in an effort to ensure that ministers are also in on the discussions related to the ministries that they hold responsibility for, as well as to streamline and collaborate as much as possible in the execution as well as planning moving forward towards our recovery in the new COVID-19 era. This must be our focus even as we deal in this emergency, because St. Martin must be ready to take back up the mantle to lead in the Caribbean as a #1 destination. It also gives us the opportunity in this planning period to diversify our economy, seeing how vulnerable we are for outside shocks, as Minister Arion, our Minister of Finance, has just mentioned. Also to update on the COVID-19 cases. Even though I published last night the results, we did have developments during the night, and after a discussion with our CPS epidemiologist, Ava Lista de Weaver, she was able to inform that there was yet another death that can be counted as COVID-related. Apparently, a gentleman that had passed away during the week was tested post-mortem for the COVID virus, as it was uncertain as to what the cause of death was, and it is determined that he also was a positive patient.
Minister of Finance, Mr. Ardwell Irion, gave an elaborate virtual presentation on the stimulus and relief plan that he had prepared to cope with the anticipated downturn in our economy at Parliament on Tuesday, April the 21st, 2020. The minister outlined the various points of interest in his presentation, which included the emergency measures to mitigate the effects of COVID-19.
On March 6, 2020, the government of St. Martin began implementing the measures and travel restrictions to control the spread of COVID-19. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic on March 11, 2020, to which St. Martin responded with further tightening of its travel restrictions and public health measures. On March 20, 2020, our ports were closed completely for transportation of persons, however, remained open for cargo. The pandemic continues to expand with more than 175 countries reporting cases of COVID-19. The COVID-19 viral outbreak had already begun to spread considerably, and many economies began to suffer disruption, prompting governments worldwide to act accordingly, swiftly, and forcefully via targeted public health responses and supportive macroeconomic policies. With the closure of its borders, the economic activity of St. Martin had drastically declined and is further projected to have continued adverse effects on a major economic pillar, tourism. The Central Bank of course, on St. Martin forecast economic contraction of approximately 30% of our GDP if the borders remain closed for 6 months. As a result, the impact is not limited to the rapid increase of unemployment, but includes businesses and individuals failing to meet financial obligations, increased government budget deficits due to sharp drop in tax revenues, and increasing expenditures putting pressure on the balance of payments, and the foreign reserves are coming under pressure. Based on the above elucidation, St. Martin is in dire need of financial assistance to implement measures to assist the affected groups, to mitigate any potential spillover effects and restore the growth and confidence. The government of St. Martin has put together a relief and economic stimulus program that captures direct relief for the following: payroll support for businesses that are impacted, income support for sole proprietors, vendor license holders, bus and independent taxi drivers, income support for unemployed, liquidity support for the government. We have included the financial needs for each section for the short, medium, and long term in accordance with the CBCS scenario. The assumptions and considerations are as follows: the initial 3 months, zero economic activity; the following 3 months, 50% activity; the final 3 months, 75% economic activity. We are concerned about using this premise of the Central Bank of St. Martin, as it is based on economic impact assessment made by the CBSC, dated March 17, 2020. Since this date, there have been major developments regarding the economic activity, the spread of the pandemic with St. Martin, and our target markets for tourism, which have not been included in the initial assessment of March 17th. The position of the island as it stands today is different and should be taken into consideration when assessing this relief and economic stimulus package. Therefore, we have included an alternative but conservative outlook, which assumes recovery commencing in the fourth quarter of 2020. This assumption considers the impact of the pandemic on the economy, primarily dependent on tourism demand. Tourism is highly dependent on the recovery in our primary sales markets, which suggests the period of our closure St. Martin for foreign travel is not considered as a constraint factor. The forecasted weakening of tourism is a direct consequence of the fast increasing, widening, and deepening economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the US, European, and Latin American economies, and the related levels of income in these regions. As travel is a relative luxury good with high income elasticity, a contraction of economic activity in our target markets will be reflected in our reduced demand for tourism.
In the virtual presentation, the Minister of Finance says he has been working on the stimulus plan since April the 4th, 2020, where he advised the CFT, and they began analyzing the financial impact. They, in turn, would advise the Kingdom Council of Ministers. He elaborates.
On April 4th, 2020, the St. Martin Stimulus and Relief Plan was sent to the Secretariat of the CFT to work on the advice for the Kingdom Council of Ministers. On April 6th, the stimulus plan was sent to the Minister of Interior Affairs and the Board of CFT. By letter of April 7th, the CFT advised the Kingdom Council of Ministers with regard to the need for liquidity of St. Martin for the period of April. And further to that, started to finalize the advice for St. Martin, the stimulus and relief plan. The CFT began analyzing the financial impact of the plan and will advise the Kingdom Council of Ministers on it to be decided on during the next Kingdom Council of Ministers. Next slide. By letter of April 16th, the Minister of Interior and Kingdom Relations informed the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance on the decisions of the Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting April 9th, including that the liquidity support 2019 was to be paid out on April 9th. Now the conditions had been met, including the 10% reduction of the emoluments and salaries of the political authorities. And that St. Martin Stimulus and Relief Plan was received, and the content of this and any subsequent crisis plans will have to be discussed in the coming weeks. To this end, I request that you contact the Secretariat of CFT so that plans can be examined on a technical level. Taking into consideration that the National Decree of April 4th, number 2020-0314, the Government of St. Martin declared a state of emergency, which was extended by National Decree of April 18th, number 2020-0316. The government desires to implement the St. Martin Stimulus and Relief Plan as soon as possible and does not want any wait any longer on the liquidity support that will come from the Netherlands based on Article 36 of the Charter Kingdom, which article indicates that based on a mutual assistance, consultation, and cooperation with the Netherlands, Aruba, Curaçao, and St. Martin provide each other with help and assistance. Taking into consideration the previous mentioned developments, the Prime Minister, by letter of April 17th, declared an acute national interest as per Article 50 for a section under National Accountability Ordinance. Based on Article 50 of the National Accountability Ordinance, it is allowed in the acute national interest to deviate from the Parliament-approved budget. Mr. Chairman, next slide.
Slide 10.
Slide 11. Situation analysis, the public health. The rise in healthcare expenses at this moment is inevitable, as measures have already been taken to curb the contamination and spread of the virus. In compliance with the WHO, the World Health Organization, the EOC, and the general international guidelines, St. Martin Medical Center downscale all elective services where necessary to accommodate the influx of COVID-19 infected patients. A possible further outbreak of the virus in St. Martin will put a severe drag on our economic activities and result in a higher healthcare cost. The preliminary figures received from the Ministry of Public Health, Labor, and Social Affairs already revealed an increase of 4.7 million guilders. This includes an estimate of patients in isolation per day, which will require additional staff, PPEs, further expansion of healthcare services, epidemiologists, and more. Also, ventilators, specialists, isolation chambers are all critically vital to contain the further outbreak of this pandemic. The social and economic impact. The COVID-19 crisis is nothing the world has ever seen before in terms of consumption, residential investment, retail sales, production, and capital spending are all collapsing sharply at an unprecedented speed. It is difficult to predict its impact as it's incomparable to a recession or a natural disaster, which affects our linear over a period and usually affect the country one at a time. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected every region of the world, which has gone to a free fall of economic activity. The speed, the depth, and global reach of this pandemic is unknown, creating major uncertainties for policymakers and curbing the social economic impact.
And still to come, Member of Parliament for the Party for Progress wants to know about the other scenarios of the stimulus relief plan. We'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin,
powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
And in his presentation of the stimulus plan, the minister also elaborated on the public health and social and economic impact of the stimulus and relief plan.
Income support for the business community will assist in preventing bankruptcies, job losses, and further economic collapse. The rise in healthcare costs are also estimated to be seen in psychological and support services. In addition, our response also includes programs that require funding so that they can be rolled out immediately to speed up economic recovery after the crisis is over. The inventory of hotels have been far behind pre-Irma levels, and the Princess Juliana Airport is still under construction. Even when St. Martin reopens for business, the economic infrastructure is still not ready. Continued support for the training program is imperative to assist the unemployed with proper skills training that has direct impact on our tourism product. The fast tracking of projects out of the trust fund, such as the Small Medium Enterprise Project, which its objective is to support the recovery of micro, small, and medium enterprises through direct and immediate financial assistance, will largely contribute to the restoration of our economic activity. Slide 12, Mr. Chairman. The situation analysis. The impact on our economy if no relief measures are implemented. We have 4 different phases here. Phase 1, you see the current situation. Business decide to maintain operation, close and lay off workers, or at least take measures to reduce the costs. Phase 2, you see businesses cease operations, which results in a steep downsizing of the economy. Phase 3, we see businesses that remain operational, go into survival mode, and downsize the personnel. In phase 4, we see a situation where it is not sustainable, businesses cease operations, leading to closures. The timing of relief disbursement is vital in reducing the number of bankruptcies.
And we will have much more of the Minister of Finance in tomorrow's edition of SXM Daily News. And in other news at this time, Party for Progress Member of Parliament in the opposition, Ms. Melissa Gumbs, gave her opinion and views on the stimulus and relief plan. MP Gumbs says that she was hoping for a presentation of the Minister of VSA. She queries, however, where are the other scenarios, both of which are looking more realistic each day?
I have to say, I had hoped and anticipated a presentation from the Minister of VSA, considering that any recovery that we undertake has multiple avenues, fiscal, social, etc. Nevertheless, I do have several questions, and I preface my questions by saying that, yes, as the Minister of Finance has said, this is our second disaster in 3 years' time, albeit one that also impacts the rest of the world, along with St. Martin. And much like every crisis and disaster, we have again an opportunity to revisit the way we've always done things and to look at our processes and procedures and take the bold steps necessary to change them, because our reactive and at times ad hoc approach to disaster management has to come to an end. With that being said, my first, even though we've been told this is no 9/11, I find myself drawing reference to this event again. Mainly because it took the world 2 years to get back to pre-9/11 levels of air traffic, so tourists and people moving across the world. And economists are projecting that it may take the same amount of time for the global economy to recover from COVID-19. Now, within the stimulus plan, I see 3 possible scenarios that have been explored, and to 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. However, there's just one amount that has been requested, for that, which is basically 3 months worth of support. So I think my question would be, what or where are the plans then for the other two scenarios, both of which are looking more realistic each day? And what does the minister have in his mind then, or in the ministry, as planning for those potential for a worsening then of the crisis? Also to Minister Irion, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm concerned that no ample time has been given to businesses to provide proof of their revenue decline. So many of the requirements to apply for the payroll support portion on the stimulus package requires actions that have to be taken on the part of tax office and Chamber of Commerce. And the deadline appears to be April 24th. So how can this be done efficiently if we're in a state of emergency and moving around is only possible on 3 days out of the week? Are there systems that can handle this online? For example, tax office normally asks for stamp forms, will not accept a bank statement as proof of payment. So how does this go now? And with all due respect, the average business owner knows the time that it takes to request and receive documents from either one of these entities through no fault of their own, I'm sure. So what allowances, Minister, are being made to give all parties the time necessary to compile the necessary documents? And are there plans then to increase human resource capacity at, for example, the tax office? Minister Panafleck, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister of VSA. Payroll and financial support is one aspect of recovery. Social support is also necessary, particularly for the most vulnerable among us, in especially the overlooked neighborhoods. There's a food voucher component in the stimulus plan, but I do not believe that this would offer the type of long-term support that we would need to be establishing as a country to face this crisis. So what plans does the Ministry of VSA have in place to ensure that as the social impact of this crisis continues, that it is mitigated by support in the form of food banks and other programs within these communities?
And in other news at this time, founder and producer of 721 News website Gromiko Wilson says that maybe the Ministry of Justice, VROMI, and the 15 MPs have not spoken about all garbage collectors. But today, he will ask this nation to pray for them, because one will say that they all are just garbage collectors, but they are all COVID-19 frontliners.
But I just posed the picture with the intention of asking the community to keep them, who's the ones who's on the road picking up the garbage, in their prayers, because I consider them as frontliners also. Maybe they're not the frontliners that's saving the COVID-19 patients, but in the sense of they're being exposed or can be exposed, or they are fighting directly with the virus through the garbage. Because the government have certain addresses as secret, and people are in isolation, and because of either a family member or somebody was positive identified with the COVID-19 virus. So they are disposing their garbage, and not most probably in the safest and proper way. Like, for example, the hospital. The hospital have to pick up any contaminated garbage or whatever is from the COVID-19 patients. They have, or the suits, they have their standards where they dispose of these one-time use items. It can be either from the glove, from the mask, from wherever. If it is a pumper they need to use, all the things, they have the rules and standard in place. So I find, in a way, that the government can educate the people them how they have to do with their house garbage also, It will be good. It will be good for the owners, the people who have contract with government, to request them to give them the proper indication how to also deal with it when they are picking it up. By not doing it properly, most of these guys them on the garbage truck and most of these companies, it's not like in Curacao who have certain uniform on. They're wearing particular certain glove on the normal daily basis of the job with or without the COVID-19. They just, most of them use a shirt and a normal pants to combine, and some of them does use yard clothes to pick up garbage. And I find from the early stages that these companies need to invest in proper uniform and have it. And they have to also teach them, who's the garbage collector, when they finish work, what they have to do, they have to be washing their clothes on a daily basis and making sure that this, whatever germ they fix up on the road, that they don't easily bring it into the house. So their clothes cannot be mingled with normal clothes. They need to be washed separate. They need to take care and clean their washing machine how they do at home.
And now turning to our weather forecast for April the 22nd, 2020. Available moisture in the lower levels of the atmosphere may cause a few passing showers during this forecast period. Meanwhile, a weak Atlantic high-pressure system will maintain a mostly gentle to moderate wind flow. Seas are expected to peak near 6 feet during the next few days. Now, let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, President of the University of St. Martin is concerned about the state of education on St. Martin. You'll have the details of that story when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, President of the University of St. Martin, Dr. Antonio Carmona Baez, is very concerned about the state of education on St. Martin. Speaking to PJD2's newsroom, the president says that the future is very uncertain, and now, more than ever, there is a need for dialogue.
First of all, I think it's very important to recognize the efforts that the EOC, the Prime Minister, and other members of the community have been taking on in order to deal with this crisis. There are many aspects to this crisis. And, one of the aspects is education. We have many schools that were not able to prepare on time for this emergency. So, the future is very uncertain. And I think now more than ever, there is need for dialogue amongst the key stakeholders. And amongst those key stakeholders, we must recognize teacher unions, representatives of teachers, school boards, and the university. And I think together we can have a board of dialogue to support. I understand that the Prime Minister was also interested in setting an ESF for education. And I would like, of course, the university to be part of that. Why do we need to look at education? We have many students in the private and public schools here. And one of the resources, of course, during situations like this, which we have never encountered beforehand, is the use of internet for communication between teachers and students. And we think that access to internet should be available across the board so that we do not underlie the social inequalities that exist, where those who go to good schools that have lots of resources, at home they have limited access to internet. We want to make sure that all of the youth, all of the children, school-age children, also have that communication with their teachers.
I am Valerie Van Putten. Just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of SXM Daily News, we thank you for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.